أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وقاتلوا في سبيل الله واعلموا أن الله سميع عليم من ذا الذي يقرض الله قرضا حسنا ويضاعفه له أضعافا كثيرا والله يقبض ويبسط وإليه ترجعون ألم تر إلى الملأ من بني إسرائيل من بعد موسى إذ قالوا لنبي له ابعث لنا ملكا نقاتل في سبيل الله قال هل عسيتم إن كتب عليكم القتال ألا تقاتلوا قالوا وما لنا ألا نقاتل في سبيل الله وقد أخرجنا من ديارنا وأبنائنا فلما كتب عليهم القتال تولوا إلا قليلا منهم والله عليم بالظالمين صدق الله العظيم. So inshallah, today we will be looking at verses 244 to 246. Now, the surah continues. We had already seen yesterday about how the Bani Israel, a generation of Bani Israel, perished in the desert, and then they were followed up by another generation who finally won over and entered Palestine. So this now the and why did they win? Because finally they accepted Allah's command to fight in His way, and so Allah gave them victory. Now, if we look at the scenario in which these verses were revealed to the Muslims, these are early Madinan verses, Madani verses. So it was just a year and a half or so after Hijrah. So the Muslims had migrated to Makkah, sorry, Medina, and the command for fighting is about to be revealed. The Battle of Badr happens 2 years after Hijrah. So this is a year and a half after Hijrah. So Allah is mentally preparing them for jihad, to fight in His way. And He is also reminding them about the mistakes that the Bani Israel committed. That is why in the previous verses we saw about a reminder about the mistakes they had committed. So do not repeat the same mistakes. So Allah says, وَقَاتِلُوا and fight. Fi sabilillah, in the way of Allah. And fight in the way of Allah. وَعَلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ سَمِيٌّ عَلِيمٌ and know that Allah is all hearing, all knowing. So the Bani Israel, if we saw that they had wandered, thousands of them had wandered in the desert, and finally they had perished. A new generation came up, and they entered. Because that was because they were not ready to fight or to spend their time and energy. What is it that stops a man from fighting? It is either his love for life or fear of death. These are the two things which, hinders him from going ahead in the path of Allah. But the life and death is in Allah's hands. And this is the belief of every believer. So irrespective of whether I am in my house or I am in my battlefield or if I am vacationing somewhere else, if death has to approach me, if I am going to die, I will die. So might as well spend my time and energy and my life in the way of Allah and do things that He asks me to do, pleases Him, and then earn reward from Him. Because ultimately He is the one who is going to decide when I'm going to die, where I'm going to die. Even though I might try to protect myself, shield myself away from the dangers, if death has to reach me, that it will reach me. So with this attitude in mind, believers entered the battlefield and they fought, and either they were martyred or they were victorious. Whatever it is, both were forms of victory. So Allah reminds us, Allah reminds us to give ourselves, our lives, and to spend our time and energy in the cause of Allah. And then He says, finishes the ayah by saying, and know that Allah is all hearing, all knowing. Be mindful. Allah is all aware. He is all aware of your intentions, your actions. He is well aware of your needs. He responds to your needs. And all your actions are rewarded and appreciated by Allah. So we all know that the ultimate form of jihad is sacrificing one's life. So if a person is ready to do it, it requires devotion and commitment and a lot of sacrifice from him. So when a man goes forward with this niyyah, then Allah is all appreciative. He knows everything, he hears everything, and he will reward that person abundantly. And then Allah says, Man dhalladhi, who is the one who yukridullah, who will lend to Allah fardan hasana, a good loan. Here, we saw that, as I told you, these are early Madani verses. People had just migrated. So the verses about fighting, the command to go ahead and fight in the Battle of Badr is about to be revealed. What does man need to fight? He needs money. Even if we look at all the governments now at the countries, the well-developed countries, a major sum of money is dedicated to defense, to protect the country, to the military. A huge chunk of money goes there. Similarly, when for the Muslims also, if they had to engage in battle, they will need their arms and ammunitions, camels and horses and whatever was at that available at that time. And for everything, they needed money. But Muslims at that time were a strained group. They had just migrated. They had left behind their wealth and property. They did not carry much money with them. And the Ansars, that is the Muslims in Medina, even though they were prosperous, but now they were sharing all their resources with the Muslims with the Muhajirs. And so they were also strained. So no one had a great deal of money in their hand. There were few rich people and they had some money. So each one, if they are to go ahead and fight in the way of Allah, it needed that they needed to spend money. So now at this stage, fighting was voluntary, it was not made compulsory. And if you wanted to fight, you had to finance yourself. You had to bring in your arms and your shields, and if your horses or some whatever means of transport was available at that time. And because of this, even the eager so what is the only option left that others give them? So for this, you need to be very generous and spend in the way of Allah. So here, Allah is telling, this is one of the first expressions in the Quran for infaq. That is spending in the way of Allah. Several others are used, but this is the most common one. And here Allah is asking for a loan. The Almighty Allah asks us ordinary slaves for a loan. It is an open-ended loan. And here when we say infaq, spending in the way of Allah, infaq is not just money. It is not just mal. It is your time, your energy. It could be your career, your life, your talent, your skills. Everything that is spent in the way of Allah is infaq. And Allah says, I'll pay you back. If you spend in my way, if you spend your time in my way, if you spend your money in my way, I will give you back. And that is a loan, isn't it? A loan is something that you give. It will come back to you. It will be repaid to you. And he says, the word loan, it alludes as though we are kind of greedy. It makes us, it kind of embarrasses us. The Almighty Allah asks us for a loan. After all, He is the one who's given everything to us. And He asks us for a loan. Are we really that low that we have to give a loan to Allah? Can we not just give it out of gratitude, out of loyalty and devotion to Him? It makes us check our integrity. It kind of strikes a chord in us. The words that Allah uses, but Allah is very clear. Allah is very clear, and he who else knows man's nature better than Allah? Man, as it is, we expect something in return for everything that we do. And here, Allah, what comes in return to us is the reward that He promises us. So, and it is not, and Allah says, I will not just give back what you gave to me, I will multiply it many, many times. It will come back to you multifold. Here Allah says, so who will lend to Allah alone beautiful, فَيُضَاعِفَهُ, so that He multiplies it for him, أَضْعَافًا, manifold, كَثِيرًا. And this manifold, we have several hadith which talks about how a charity is multiplied like the years of a corn. You cannot even count them. This and sevens and 70s and 700s, just like how we use in English thousands of times. In Arabic, the word seven or seventies or 700s is used to show that it grows exponentially. No, it is that kind of an increase. So when you interest might be haram here in this dunya, but when Allah gives it back to us, He multiplies it exponentially and He gives it back to us. And that is the reward. Now, as I told you, these verses were revealed just before battles, and people had to spend. So these verses were motivating to them to spend. Do not think that the money that you're going to give towards the war, it is of no use. You're not going to get it back. No, I will give it back to you. And it is for us. This verse is a golden verse which applies to all of us at all points of time, motivates us to give, to spend. If you cannot spend, you do not have much money to spend, give your time. If you do not have it, if or else if you are talented, Allah has given you a set of skills and spend in the way of Allah. Whatever you are able to do, and every man will be able to do something or the other. It is not impossible. No, that I mean, it is not, you cannot say that I cannot do anything at all for Allah. Something or the other, we will have some resource Allah has given us to spend in the way of Allah. And all whatever we spend in His way, Allah says, I will give it back to you, multiplied manyfold. So here, and then He says, Wallahu Yakbidu wa yabsut. And Allah withholds and He grants in abundance. So when here Allah is hinting, or in fact He's promising us, when you spend, I will increase your rizq. I will expand your business. I will give you, give you a promotion in your career. Maybe you open up a second location of your store. Several doors are opened, when you give for Allah's sake. But, and Allah withholds as well. Yeah, Yaqubid, and He withholds. But if you get cheap, if you start acting cheap as though all this money is yours, then I will start taking away from you. So if you give generously, I will give back to you generously, and vice versa. If you do not want to give, you will not, if you do not want to give, Allah will also be hesitant in rewarding you. So now the money that was given to us that we have right now, it is for us to invest for the hereafter. Of course, we need to fulfill our needs in moderation here in this dunya, but it is also to be invested for the hereafter. Never feel that wealth is going to go down on account of charity, because all money is in Allah's control. See, there are several people might start a business at the same time. Each invests in their business. They all put in their efforts. For one person, it succeeds. For another person, it does not succeed. Who is responsible for that? Allah is responsible, because they both put in the same money and the same efforts, but the result is the same. So it is Allah who increases the risk, or Allah who holds the risk. So if you are going to spend in this way, let us never feel that me spending in the way of Allah, giving in charity, I'm going to become poor. Because that is the fear. The fear of poverty, the threat of poverty stops man from spending in the way of Allah. But it is Allah and who gives and He withholds and He increases. And that is why Allah says, and to Him you will be returned. It is not only our lives that will be returned to Him. Everything is in His hands. All power is in His hands. So, we do what we do, but the result is in Allah's hands. So neither death nor poverty should stop man from going ahead in the way of Allah. If it be in the case of jihad, as we are to see, do not fear death. Then you will be stopped from going forth. And in the case of spending here and money, which is also as you're financing the jihad that is going to happen, do not think that spending in the way of Allah is going to stop you. You will get what it will come back to you in several ways. So believing this, the believers went forth and spent their money freely, and they were able to come up with a lot of resources. And then we come to another interesting ayah which speaks about the Bani Israel. Alam taro, did not you see, ilal mala'i min Bani Israel? Have not you seen towards the chiefs of the children of Israel? I can hear some disturbance. Okay. So, Allah says, have not you seen towards the chiefs of the children of Israel? Now, here again, as I told you, the context is mental preparation of the for the battle of Badr. Now, the Bani Israel were a chosen, privileged group, but with great power comes great responsibility. They did not fulfill the responsibility that was given to them. So, this ayah is meant to emphasize do not act again like the children of several ayahs which we see in the Quran. You know, the episodes of disobedience is given, followed up with reminders for us. Do not follow them. And here, when Allah says the word chief, the chiefs are the important people. The same word mala was used for the chiefs in the Pharaoh's court as well. And here, now these chiefs, who are these chiefs? These mala literally means to fill. To fill, and here these are the people who fill the important positions, the influential people, the people who have the decision making authority, people who fill the parliaments or the congress or the important places, related to security. These are the rich and influential people of a community. So these did not you see towards the chiefs of the Bani. So the Mala of the Bani Israel, the rich, the influential people of the Bani Israel, what did they do? From after Musa. So now this episode happened after Musa alayhi salam. It could be Mim Ba'di, it could refer to immediately after or much after Musa alayhi salam. But the word Min also means that, after a great teacher like Musa alayhi salam had passed away, such an incident happened. Do not you see what happened after, the verse starts with, do not you see Alam Tara. Now, Alam Tara is also, it is a rhetorical question which keeps happening, which keeps coming often in the Quran. It is, don't you know? Don't you see? It is like, to create a sense of urgency. Don't you know about this? And if not better, sit up, take notice and listen to what I have to say. And then towards the chief and uh, after Musa alayhi salam. So in Musa alayhi salam, such an incident happened. What happened? When said, if qalu, when said, li nabi illahum, to a prophet of theirs. So the people of the Mala of Bani Israel, that is the chiefs of the Bani Israel, go to a prophet of theirs. It is very non-specific. It could be the Bani Israel had several prophets in their midst. We have no idea at all, no clue about who this prophet is. There are some scholars say it could be this or this person or that person, but there is no concrete evidence on who this prophet is, and Allah has kept it hidden for us simply because those details do not matter. What matters is the lesson that we learn from the ayah. That is the beauty of the Quran. It prioritizes what has to be taught to us. So the name is not relevant here. So to a prophet of theirs. So these chiefs, they went to a prophet, the prophet at that time, and they said, Ab'ad lana, appoint for us Malika, a king. Appoint for us a king. Nuqatil fi sabilillah. We want to fight in the way of Allah. So here now what had happened among the Bani Israel after the Musa alayhi salam was that corruption had entered. After Musa alayhi salam passed away, there was a generation which fought and entered Palestine. But very soon they, deteriorated. There was a lot of moral deterioration, and people had lost track. So now there are several opinions about scholars. Some scholars say it was a genuine interest to revive religion, and that is why they went to the Prophet and asked for a king. And some scholars say no, it was not a genuine reason for them to go and ask. Why? Because Ab'ath lana Malikan, appoint for us a king. Now, what is the duty of a prophet? A prophet is appointed by Allah. He is the unanimous leader. And a prophet is not just for religious purposes alone. He is a leader politically, economically, socially. We know, isn't it? Our prophet was a political leader. He led military expeditions. When a prophet is there, you do not appoint another leader because he is the unanimous leader appointed by God himself. What more could you ask for? So, in fact, it was disrespectful to actually go to a prophet and ask him to appoint another leader. And what is the reason behind that? Lana Malikan, appoint for us a king. King Nuqatil fi sabilillah. See, how do they coax the prophet here? They tell the prophet, see, we want to fight in the way of Allah, so appoint a leader for us. If you want to fight in the way of Allah, you already have a prophet with you. Why are you searching for someone else? Why do you need another person to lead you to fight in the way of Allah? But that was not the real reason at all. And another reason that they wanted the prophet to appoint a leader for them, because they were a big group of influential rich people. Each one wanted to be a leader themselves. And but they could not decide who is to become the king. So if they go to a prophet and tell him, appoint a leader for us, and if there is a religious sanction over political power, if a prophet appoints a leader, then none can fight, isn't it? No, we see that happening now itself when for a political party to be validated, they get the validation from a religious group so that the masses, the general public will accept them as the leader. When we see religion and politics are intertwined, what happens? People are ready to accept. Oh, so this is a religious leader himself has sanctioned such a party. Okay, then we will accept it. The masses easily accept it. And this is what this group of, this is not a new phenomenon. It has been happening at that time itself. So this group of people, they go to the prophet and ask to get that religious sanction, for one among them so that they could lead. Because it was foolish to go to a prophet who himself is a leader and to ask him for another leader. It was very disrespectful. Now this prophet, and how did they try to coax, telling him that we want to fight in the way of Allah. Now this prophet, very obviously a very intelligent person, alayhi salam, he says, "Qala, hal asaytum, would you perhaps in kutiba alaykumul qital, if prescribed upon you the fighting, if you were ordered to fight, Allah tuqatilu, that not you would fight." See, first they ask him to appoint a leader. This prophet does not even talk about who is the leader because he knows that they want to fight, they want to appoint a leader so that they could fight under the leader. Now, this prophet is evading, the prophet is evading the question about the leader, and he directly comes to the part of fighting, and he says, if would you perhaps, if in kutiba alaykumul kitab, if fighting was prescribed upon you, Allah tuqatilu, will you really fight? Give me the reassurance that you will fight because I know about you. You are not a morally right group. Your mere bravado, all the excuses that you are coming up, I'm not going to be fooled. You are not an obedient group. Who knows about a group of people better than the Prophet himself? So will you fight or will you not fight? I'm not going to waste my energy on something that you are not going to do. So he's openly throwing the question back to them and he's asking them, will you stand up to your promise? You say you want a leader so that you, in the way to that too, they use tall words, peace, sabilillah. In the way of Allah, will you live up to that? So that is the question they put. And these people are offended. That Mala of Bani Israel, they are offended and they ask, Qalu, they said, وَمَا لَنَا أَلَّا تُقَاتِلْ, and what is the matter for us that we do not fight? Why will we not fight? فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, in the way of Allah, وَقَدْ أَخْرِجْنَا مِنْ دِيَارِنَا وَأَبْنَائِنَا, while surely we have been driven out from our homes and our children. Now here comes the real reason that they want to fight. Now the Bani Israel had lost their glory. They wanted to reclaim their land. Their children were being abused. They wanted to reclaim their children, their property, their assets. So, under the cover of religion, they say, fi sabilillah, but this was their real intention. We have been driven out from our homes, and our children are also being driven out. So now see, the fighting for your land and for your children and your assets are legitimate causes. There is nothing wrong in fighting. It is to be appreciated. But it is not fi sabilillah. Fi sabilillah is when we fight to establish the deen, for the spread of the deen, to stop people who are hindering the deen, for people who oppress the Muslims, to fight to establish the word of Allah to establish the word of Allah, that is fi sabilillah. To fight for your land, a freedom struggle will not be fi sabilillah. It is an independence movement. Anyone could be doing that. Buddhists could be doing that. Christians could be doing that. Hindus could be doing that. Anyone can fight. Anyone can fight for their land. That is not fi sabilillah. So fi sabilillah and fighting for your land, a freedom or an independence movement cannot be mixed. So their intention was to fight for their land, not fi sabilillah. So their real intention comes out and they say, when we have been separated from our children and we have been driven out from our homes, why would we not fight in the way of Allah? But what happened? فَلَمَّا كُتِبَ عَلَيْهِمُ الْقِتَالُ, yet when was prescribed the fighting upon them, تَوَلَّوْا, they turned away, إِلَّا قَلِيلًا مِنْهُمْ. Now the Prophet, obviously he knew them, and the word he uses here, and the Prophet said, in kutiba alaykum qital, if the fighting is prescribed upon you, Allah tuqatilu. He uses the word hal asaytum. The word asaytum means 99% you are not going to do it. It is a pessimistic way. Would you perhaps? So the Prophet knew very well that they were not going to do it. So the Prophet's prediction came true. He had predicted that they were not going to fight. And it does not matter whether it was fi sabilillah or whether it was for their land and their children, they did not fight. They fell back flat on their words fell back flat on their faces. They did not go ahead and fight. And when fighting was prescribed upon them, they turned away in fear. Illa qalila minhum. This was the righteous religious group which went ahead and fought. We will see about that in the following ayahs tomorrow, next week, inshallah. Wallahu alimun bil Allah is well aware of the wrongdoers. He knows about what happened during the Bani Israel. Now, why are these verses being revealed to the Makkans now? They are in that same stage. The Muslims are going to fight the non-Muslims. That is, the Muslims are going to fight the Quraysh, the Makkans, and they know, Makkah is their homeland. So Allah is reminding them, do not fight for your land. Do not fight for Makkah. Fight for the deen. Do not fight for your families or the wealth that you had to leave behind when you migrated to Medina. If it is fi sabilillah, you fight only to raise the word of Allah. And this story is so suitable, is so apt for what the Muslims were, going to face in Medina, because it was really a huge battle. Battle of Badr was no ordinary thing. They really had to suppress a lot of feelings and truly stand up for the cause of Allah. So a very powerful reminder, and that is the lesson that we learn from this ayah. It is not necessary to know the name of the Prophet. Why do we have to know? All we need to know is the basic. And Allah, whenever it is essential, He reveals it. And when the lessons are important, He prioritizes it. And for us to for us to learn exactly what has to be learned. So from what we have seen today in the three ayahs that we have seen, Allah tells us to spend generously in this cause. None of us have an excuse to not spend in the way of Allah. Whatever limited resources we have, it could be our money, our time, our energy, our career, our skills, our talents. We should spend in the way of Allah, and Allah promises to multiply it exponentially and give it back to us. And we can see, and we saw about how disobedience and corruption had entered into the Bani Israel in many ways. With the religious cloak around it, they went and tried to disturb their prophet, and put up false excuses in front of them. Let us beware. Let us also be careful. Let us never fall a prey to these kind of villainous things that might happen to us in our community as well. Let us always stand by the yardstick should be the Allah and His Prophet, the Quran and the Hadith. We have to follow it and go by it. Inshallah, if you have any questions, you can post it in the group. I hope the verses about infaq were clear to you, because these are very important verses. People think infaq or spending in the way of Allah is just about money. But it is a lot more than money, isn't it? As I told you, none of us have excuses to stop ourselves from contributing to the deen. Everyone will have some resource or the other. Even arranging a meeting, even putting chairs in order. We are giving our time, we are giving our energy. Even setting up the mic, whatever you are good at. You could be good at something technically, you could be good at something, oratorically, you could be good at writing, you would be able to spend So you will have to uh, Sister Hamdan asked, can you please explain about parenting in the way of Allah? I don't think it is related to today's topic, and it's a very huge topic. Sister Farah Adiba asks, are the Bani Israel Muslims? See, the Bani Israel, where they, I mean, where, as long as they are following the prophets, they are Muslims, yes. But once they moved away, once they moved away from the original scriptures and they started fabricating and they started worshipping things other than Allah, then there is no full obedience, isn't it? They have not fully submitted to Allah. So at that point of time, they would not be considered as Muslims. As long as they are under the Prophet, yes, they are Muslims. And prophets kept coming down to the Bani Israel one after the other. There were numerous prophets who came down to the Bani Israel itself. But it was much later that Judaism developed and they had the title of Jews. All that was much later. But till then, they were considered as Muslims only. And with the Prophet in their midst, they were doing all these kind of mischievous acts, acting against the Prophet, killing their own prophets. Technically, as long as you said the Shahada, you are counted as a Muslim. But their actions were, quite contrary to what they believed in. You see about this ayah a lot more about what happened and who actually what they were appointed, they wanted a king and who was actually appointed as a king and did they follow that prophet, so they had come to the prophet and asked him, appoint for us, but when it did actually come down, and one of the things that I would like to mention is this question answer session. Is my voice audible? Yeah. Okay. So now one of the difference between the Quran and the Bible, the Torah and Bible are quite voluminous, because of obviously because of a lot of